anybody watching this wants to know, because maybe they don't understand marketing or maybe they don't understand advertising with a smaller budget, and maybe they don't have access to a John Lee. When people talk about like, oh, like, you know, you need to build a team, I'm like, yeah, you need a John Lee.
Even if you have someone like me, then can you afford the tool on top that I need to use to go do that? Because I can't build that tool for you. I can give you strategy. I can find maybe cheaper ways of trying to do the same thing. But man, like if I had access, the budget would be like, hey, let's use this tool that I would use for this company because they could pay for it for you. That would change the game.
Hey, what's going on? Welcome to the McCove Mindset Podcast. This week, we are sitting down with my guy, Jonathan Lee. He's a data-driven and growth-focused digital marketer with over 15 years of experience working for agencies like Critical Mass and Evans and Hunt. As a mentor and a speaker, he's worked with multiple organizations such as Canada's Music Incubator and the Juno Awards. And as a songwriter, he's worked with both independent and major label artists. He's recently moved into the world of sync, where he's garnered placements with the NFL, NBC Universal, and Peacock. Really looking forward to getting to this episode with you guys. As always, if you like what you hear, hit like, hit subscribe, leave a comment, and let me know what you think. Let's get to it. Why are we behind in terms of marketing and marketing agencies and like how we get our music out? Like, how are we behind the ball on this? Why?
So I could be wrong, but the way that I look at it from being, you know, a songwriter who does this professionally, but also having the weird in between of working at these big marketing agencies on corporate clients and then working with music clients is that unfortunately it's kind of like a chicken and an egg problem. A lot of the people that have worked in music marketing departments, they don't have that background of working on corporate. And the difference between working in corporate is Nike's always had to compete against Adidas. Toyota has always had to compete against Honda. So that innovation in and of itself leads to technology improvements and innovations and creating frameworks like literally like, oh, like for example, this is a very simple like example and it might not 100% be accurate, but for many years, and I'm not actually sure right now, Bandcamp wouldn't let you put a Facebook pixel on its page, which is ridiculous because you can't, because then a music person couldn't remarket to that, right? And that would require somebody at Bandcamp understanding what artists need to do to be able to remarket their music and get back to fans. Now, the question is, was that a conscious decision or is that a lack of understanding? Just because they...
Right.
And who is that person making those decisions, let's say, at that place? And I'm not trying to throw Bandcamp under a bus or anything like that, but it's something to me where like anybody who was working in any other field in digital marketing would have been like, this is a huge gap. Now, that might be a decision, a conscious decision on Bandcamp's decision to be like, we're not allowing a pixel on here because we don't agree with what Meta or Facebook is doing. That could have been a decision, but I don't know whether it's a conscious decision or whether it's a decision out of ignorance or lack of expertise. So
that I feel that friction, like maybe there's not enough like people that actually use the products that get to have their input heard, because I just learned, right, that like if you're on Instagram and you make a post, like, so you know how you can like make it so that if you post to Instagram, it also posts to Meta.
Yeah.
Facebook. So I'm like, all right, that is same company, like whatever. If I make a post that's a reel on Instagram and I go to share it and it shares to Facebook, if you wanted to promote that post, if you wanted to boost that post or whatever, it will say to you, you cannot boost this. You can't boost like any reels that have also been shared to Facebook. And I'm like, this doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
Why would I not be able to do that when even they're under the same umbrella?
Legalities, to be honest. A lot of it is just like, yeah, for lack of a better word. But this is where like the thing comes in about music marketing is that there isn't necessarily a technological framework to do some of the really advanced stuff. Problem also is the money that's available is concentrated in different places. It's either way up It's either way at the highest levels where they have a lot of budget, and then there's this huge middle gap where nobody has the money. And because nobody has the money, then it's very possible that they don't want to invest in the technological structure for those people to market better because there's no money there. So it's like a chicken and egg thing, right? Like somebody has to start it, right? And then on
Right.
top of that is there's a whole bunch of music marketers who have only worked in the music industry, so they only understand an old school way of doing it when you could just throw up an ad and people would buy stuff, right? They have no idea about you need to create awareness first and loyalty, and then eventually that becomes a purchase. They don't quite understand that. They want to move what we call in the like this is getting very technical, but there's such a thing called a marketing funnel. I don't know whether you've seen that before. It's an upside down triangle.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
and this is essential for any product is you have to become aware of something, then you have to consider it, doing your research, then you have to purchase it, and then there's post purchase or loyalty. The problem is that a lot of music places and a lot of artists, independent artists and labels, lots of people who don't understand, they try to move right to the middle of the funnel or the bottom of the funnel, which is the bottom of the triangle. They try to get the purchase right away, so they advertise just for the purchase. The problem is like they don't realize they have to create loyalty and awareness first to go do that. It's like I like to use this example. I was at a conference last week and I asked some of the artists, well, if you have a friend in your life and they ask you for a favor, if this friend isn't checking in on you, you never hear from them or anything like that, and then they ask you to do a favor, are you more likely to do a favor for that friend, or are you more likely to do a favor for a friend who you see every week, you hang out with them, you get to know them? When they make the ask, you're way more likely to give them the favor, right? This is the exact same problem if we apply it to the music industry today. Everybody tries to move to, hey, will you do me a favor before doing any of that legwork to build the relationship? And
Right.
the music industry doesn't understand that because they never had to do the legwork to build that before. They would just be like, hey, here's my ad about when this is touring, or hey, this is this. And it used to be able to print money. This isn't the case anymore. So that's why. And then with the proliferation of social media and everybody, their mom and their dad and their dog is an artist, now there's just increased mass as well. So how do you cut through? The only way you can cut through is create loyalty and then lead down to the purchase or to the stream or to whatever the conversion point is. And when I say conversion, that means just the intended action. That's the problem that the music industry is running into. But to do some of that stuff, to create the loyalty and then be able to get back to those people, you need those technological frameworks to be able to remarket, to get back to those people. And sometimes that technology doesn't exist either for that framework. So these are multiple compiling problems from the lack of understanding to technology changes to there not being enough money to fund the technological frameworks. So this is the whole cycle of why these things aren't necessarily working, at least from my opinion, from what I see from my past experience of working in corporate marketing, in big ad agency marketing.
That is so crazy because, I'm just getting my first taste at all this, right? Like, in terms of the corporate stuff. I'm like, it's interesting. It puts me in like a sort of a interesting position, but I would almost I feel like it's a unique position, right? It might not be, but I feel like being in meetings about like with the marketing agencies and the advertising agencies and being the person who's like the independent artist who is like more of like on the creative side of things, I think. Like sometimes I think it's to my benefit that I don't understand necessarily all. It's like I understand those frameworks, but I don't know them. You know what I mean? So I don't think about things through that lens.
Yeah.
So I would just be throwing out ideas. So I'm like, oh, like there's the idea, and then someone comes back and lets me know, like, oh yeah, that will work, or this is why we cannot do it that way, and I'm like, okay, cool, we can't do it that way, so now let me like problem solve a different way. So it's like a unique space to be in, but that corporate stuff is, I feel like it's so much different than the independent.
Yeah.
And I think that like maybe like do you see, I don't want to say what I think. Do you think that independent artists can use any of the stuff that the corporate structure uses, or like they're completely separate things and you can't really overlay them?
There is an overlay for sure, but that overlay requires you to get very good at digital marketing. So that, and knowing the structures of that. So that overlay does exist.
Okay, so what, tell
But,
me, John,
but
what is digital marketing?
overlay,
Okay.
isn't it? But the majority of that, just that is what we're talking about. Like there's some that does overlay, but there's a huge massive chunk that doesn't, because there aren't companies or digital platforms that are developing the technological framework to do it at a cheaper price than what an independent artist can afford. If they're not independently wealthy,
Right.
or if they're not having a side job that they can fund into that. And then if they were going to spend their own money and they work and they put into it, then they should be confident that the technology that has been developed will actually do what it needs to do. Right. And that's the problem about the industry, about the wealth being so segmented between the very high up and then the massive gap in between. That is a part of one of the compounding larger issues with why now someone's going to figure this out, and people are trying to solve this, but this is like one of the big issues that like most people probably won't understand, just only through the reason of like just like this is really deep type of understanding of marketing and technology type of stuff, which you don't
So I
really.
want to take us there because, like, some of our audience, and even myself, like, we all want to know. I think anybody watching this wants to know, because maybe they don't understand marketing, or maybe they don't understand advertising, and like what they reasonably have access to as an independent with a smaller budget, and maybe they don't have access to a John Lee. Maybe they're not friends with somebody like you, and they could be like, "Yo, come on my podcast, and let's just like chop it up." Like you are, you're an like having someone like you. Like when people talk about like, oh, like you need to build a team. I'm like, yeah, you need a John Lee.
But even if you have someone like me, the issue also comes into the sense of like, then can you afford the tool on top that I need to use to go do that? Because I can't build that tool for you, right? Like, so it's like extra things. Like I can give you strategy. I can find maybe cheaper ways of trying to do the same thing as much as can. We can try to patchwork it, and it does work. Don't get me wrong. But man, like if I had access to like, or just the budget to be like, hey, let's use this tool that I would use for this company because they could pay for it for you, that would change the game. But then you see things that are happening where it is sort of changing. Like for example, one chart metric moved to a personal plan where people could individually go research Spotify playlists, because it used to be only for labels, and that would cost 100. I think it was 100. I could be wrong. It was like $100 a month or something like that. And someone might not be able to afford that. But now there's a personal plan that costs $10 a month.
$10. Yeah, $10.
Yeah, so you can research out your Spotify playlist and who to pitch and stuff like that. Like those are slow shifts and change. Like Chartmetric is one of those where they trying to start shifting, right? To be able to adapt to hey, we could have one label pay for this at $100 a month or 500 or $1,000 a month, or we could get 1,000 independent people paying $10 a month, and that'll make us more money, right?
Right.
That's their thought process. I would assume. I could be wrong, but that kind of makes sense. It's a quantity play now and a volume game sometimes with this stuff too. So yeah, so it is really important to be able to get together your team. But at the end of the day, there's also something about like you don't always need all this advanced stuff. Some of the stuff is as simple as if you're getting emails, anybody can get an email from a show. So it comes down to creativity. Like if you get an email, then there's a lot you can do with it. You can upload those emails into advertising, and then you can advertise to people. You can do just a regular mailing list, right? So there's still things that before you ever get to that advanced level, there's still basics that people aren't doing. There's still basics that people aren't doing in terms of like building up their fan base. There's basics even on the creative side, right? Like outside of my marketing experience, like as a songwriter who writes professionally for people, they're not doing sometimes the work even musically. Like you will hear TikTok songs that go viral, and a lot of those songs, when you hear the full song past the 10 or 30-second clip, is not a good song. And then you see that person perform, and you can clearly tell they have not put in their 10,000 hours or even their 100, 200 hours on the stage. Like, you can see that. So there are things within their control that they're not doing to build their fans ever before we even talk about them not having the technology to run things, right? You
Right.
have to have a good product first. It doesn't matter uh, if you have all the technology and all those type of things. If your product is fundamentally flawed, which might be your music or your ability to perform, then it doesn't matter if you have all this other stuff. You can get somewhat far, but you can't get to the promised land or whatever that is, whatever you see, if you're not working on the fundamental things that have always been important in the music industry. Good songs, be a good live performer, do your work, hopefully be a person of integrity and character, even though there's plenty
Right.
of people that make it that don't, right? These are all things that are within someone's control, right? That are not outside of these things that they can't control, like tech companies and companies giving the tools. Those are things that are outside of their control. Eventually,
I love that. Focus on the things that you can control.
yeah, there's plenty that they're not doing. So if you've done all those things and then there's that thing, then yeah, there's things that you can do after that. But you need to start with the basis, which is still at the end of the day the music you're creating for whatever purpose you're creating it for.
So let's say I have moderately good music. Okay. Let's say I'm an independent artist. I'm watching this podcast. I got moderately good music. I got some stuff out on Spotify. We've hit, and I'm going down that road of trying to build my community, right? I'm trying to isolate my people. Instagram is throttling me. TikTok is throttling me. I'm building my own community.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to send them emails. What you mentioned, like, email marketing and stuff. What is email marketing? Is it not just, hey, I send an email to somebody and let them know what's going on?
No, I think that's the thing is like we confuse like the conversion and the awareness so that hey, I'll get a conversion if I just make people aware of what I'm doing. And there's a difference. It's not making people aware of what you're doing. It's creating loyalty and then them becoming aware of you through that. So the wrong play is, let's say, like on an Instagram post or an email, like, hey, I got a tour coming out, come see me. That's great. And you could put that in there, but only if you've created the loyalty that they're going to want to come see you. So in that email, if you know your target market really well, you know your demographic, like let's say it all comes from knowing your audience, right? So let's say you are like a folk singer songwriter and you know your audience in the sense of you've done the work in that, like what TV shows they watch, like, oh, they like craft beer, or oh, they like to go to cafes and drink this type of, like, or they, oh, these are the activities they like to do on the weekend, this is their age group, this is their gender. Like, if you have all this type of stuff, then you know what type of content's going to resonate with them. Now, the difference is whether you're doing social media or email marketing, anything like that, is are you a person who creates content who does music, or are you a musician who creates content? And there's a very big difference. One is intrinsically, when you're a musician who's just creating content to create fans, that's very different than the Instagram influencer who just happens to be a DJ, right? These
Right.
are it's a very fine line, but the difference is the person who really cares about the music will find a way of creating content that still showcases their musical skill, but not in a very blatant way, not in a way that seems very promotional. For example, I always like giving this. There is this group called Two Set Violin. They've got 1.1 million TikTok followers, 4.4 million as of last week YouTube subscribers. And these are two, and I can say this. I'm Asian. These are two Asian guys who I don't know what the vernacular is these days, but they,
Y'all get a pass. You get a pass.
yeah, yeah, I'm Asian. I can describe
Yeah, it's not gonna pass.
yeah, I can describe my own people. Um, I think they're also Chinese too, so it's like I'm Chinese too, so that's like also a different. I think so.
I'm like, is there a slang word? Now I'm
I don't
distracted.
know.
I'm like,
Don't
is there
cancel
a
me if I.
slang word, a colloquialism
I don't
that
know. They're
people of Asian descent use with
Asian.
each other?
Asian is fine. Yeah, Asian is fine, but yeah, don't cancel me, but it's not wrong. Um, but but with these guys, the way they do it is like they are musicians who sell out tours, and people don't really like an everyday person walking on the sidewalk will not know who they are, but they've got 4.4 million people on YouTube who know who they are. They got 1.1 million people on TikTok that know who they are. But the way they do it is they create content that also showcases their musical skill without being blatantly promotional. So they will find, like, I remember the first video I ever saw of them was like there was some news performance where this guy was just like, I'm the fastest fiddle player or violin player in the world, and he did it, and it was horrible. And then they would critique that and they would satire it about being like, no, this guy's garbage. And they would try to do it themselves and they'd make fun of themselves, but also the guy. Because so basically they'd critique anywhere where classical music showed up, whether it was in pop culture, a TV show, and show like, this is real, this is fake, and be hilarious at it, while then showcasing how it's supposed to be done, thus showcasing their musical skill while
Right.
entertaining somebody. They weren't creating a video about being like, look at how I can play this well. No, they'd be like, look at maybe how I can play this well while satiring this other thing that is entertaining somebody and educating them while at the same time showcasing that they have something good. And what will happen is
Right.
people will see, like, dang, these guys are funny, they're entertaining me, it's providing me value, but oh, these guys can play. So that when they put up a post that, like, hey, we're touring here, we're doing this, all of a sudden that person has been entertained by their videos, but they also really know that they're really good musicians, so they're going to want to see them live. So then they buy a ticket.
Right.
There's the difference.
So this is something I'm so glad you're pointing this out too, because I'm like, this is something that in my own personal life, I feel like, yo, I'm struggling with this. Like, cause at my heart, I'm like, do not feel like a content creator. Like, but I gotta post, right? I gotta put stuff out. And I'm like, where does that bridge? Because all the stuff that I'm posting, and like we're friends, you see me on social.
Yeah.
None of that is really like, I don't think it even highlights really what I do. Like, I think that if you came to my page, you would maybe not understand that, like, I write a lot of music for television and advertising.
But the question is, do you need to showcase that in what you're wanting to do? Because there's a difference between, like, for us, because like I'm no longer an artist. Like, even though sometimes things occasionally have my name, but I'm a songwriter. At this point, it's a quality over quantity play in terms of followers and content. Am I actively showing
Right.
my content that I'm working, collaborating with others? Like, it is more of a, I don't need to create loyalty on my content from fans. I need to create loyalty and content and show that I'm competent to the right types of people. The single
Oh, you're right.
that's a different shift. It's much harder to be an
I
artist.
feel like that's kind of the where I am
Yeah,
in
exactly.
that kind of a
But
space.
you're also providing value because the content you create is educational content and that still provides value to somebody, right? And that might be like, so if somebody else learn something and let's say they just so happen to be a music supervisor or they just so happen to be at that, they'll be like, oh, that's really good. And then they might be like, oh yeah, what else does Kevin do? That's where your social media has helped you, right? When
Right.
so you don't have to necessarily showcase your musical skill, but then you can also do something where you break down how you did something while still providing value to somebody else, but also showcasing your music, right? That's why like production breakdowns and things like that are really effective because you're providing value to somebody, but you're also showcasing your musical skill at the same time without being blatantly promotional. Like things like that is like really important. An artist
Right.
though, and this is what I say, it's just like, unfortunately, if you're an artist in 2023, you got to be creating some type of content in some way, shape, or form, right? The question is like that. What is that content going to be, and how do you approach the content? And do you showcase what we call your brand in that content? And once again, when I say brand, I define it maybe in a different way that other artists are, because brand can be considered a dirty word, right? Brand can be considered something that's considered promotional, fake, what have you, inauthentic. The way I define it is brand is authentically communicating who you are to your target market. Key is a few different things. Authentically communicating, number one. Second thing is to your target market. So that requires that you know what your target market is. You know who your people are that will respond to your music. And that is the problem. Most people do not know their target market. And now on the other hand, on a very personal level, some people don't want to authentically communicate who they are because of this culture that we live in of comparison. But also, they don't want to authentically communicate who they are, which leads to problems because it is really tiring to be something you're not, right? And that's a larger thing today on social media, especially because people want to show only their highlight reel. They only want to show when things are going well and not the struggles. And that we all know
Right.
life is not realistically like that. So these are the things that are coming in. These are all things that are coming into play. It is the day and age we live in, but also culturally, the day and age that we live in too are all contributing factors to this type of thing because we all know, like, there's that proverb, that comparison is the thief of joy, right? So, and that's the
Joy.
thing that we're
Yeah.
running into too,
And
right?
we're not letting nobody steal our joy because this podcast is sponsored by Joy Burst. The Joy Burst Talent Competition. You know it. The Joy Burst Talent Competition is running right now. It actually just got extended. So the Joy Burst Talent Competition now is running until the end of March. Right? You can go on to TikTok, you go to Instagram, you can sing anything about joy. If you're an instrumentalist, play. Has to be about, just the place of joy. And then hashtag Joyburst Talent Search, upload it. The Joyburst team will find it, and that will qualify you for an opportunity to win $10,000 cash and maybe some other opportunities too. So, yes, definitely. Hashtag Joyburst Talent Search. Go show your love of music and don't let any comparison be the thief of your joy. Had to get that in there, John.
Nicely done.
I'm like, yo.
It worked. It was good. That wasn't even intentional. Nice segue. But yeah, that's the thing that we're running into today. There's so many different factors, but it's just people don't understand that it's not build it and they will come type of environment anymore for music.
So help them understand. Help me understand. Help us all understand, John, about like you said that problem is people don't know how to identify their target audience.
Yeah.
How do you identify your target audience?
So there's a lot of different things that you can do, right? And it's work, right? I guess the first thing that, the thing that I always teach, whether I'm speaking at conferences or whether I am, we're both faculty at the Songwriting Academy, like whether I'm teaching stuff there, with everywhere that I go when I'm teaching types of marketing, and this extends beyond just music marketing because this is just marketing in general, is understanding the behaviors and who your target market is. So if we specifically talk about musicians and artists trying to find their target market, there's two ways of starting with it. And I'll explain. So one of them starts with knowing who you are yourself and knowing why you're an artist, why you do what you do, understanding your brand. So what I like to show is like one of the diagrams that I always like to use is like two concentric circles and there's an overlap, right? And that's that over. And we've all seen this.
We call that a Venn diagram in the United States.
We also call that in Canada, but I did not have the yes. So the Venn diagram, and the place where the two circles overlap is really important. And one of the circles is who you are as an artist. The other one is who your audience is. And if you remember when I said brand is authentically communicating who you are. So I use this example. So if anybody has ever like spoken with me or heard me at a conference or has done a one-on-one session with me, is take first, and this, the only caveat of this is if you decide to be an artist who your artist persona is completely different than who you are. So someone like a Lady Gaga, where she is a very different person than who she actually is as an individual, like they're separate entities. This doesn't apply to that. That's a little different. But in this case, many people who are artists are not going to have such a large separation, right? They're going to strategically show only certain parts of themselves, but it's not like a totally different type of person, if that makes sense. It's not a persona. They're not running a persona. Right. So in this case, let's say, and I use this example all the time. Let's say that there is an MC, like hip hop, name is Riley, and she, as a person, likes horseback riding, artisanal soaps, sneakers, and like martial arts Eastern culture, right? Let's say these are 4 things that she genuinely likes and enjoys. Now, unfortunately, and I don't want to paint large brush, but there's probably not a lot of hip hop fans who like horseback riding and artisanal soaps, right? But
Right.
there's probably a section of fans who like hip hop who also like sneaker culture because it's inherently tied together, and maybe like Eastern culture or martial arts because of like the Wu-Tang Clan and things like that, right? Like there is some like there is some buzzword coming up, some synergy between those two places, right? So if Riley decides to create content that maybe is based around these 2 types of things, the like sneaker and martial arts culture or Eastern culture, but also somehow places her musicality into that content, there's a likelihood that there is going to be an audience that enjoys hip hop that also likes those 2 things. Now, when she posts, she can do content and she will feel like she's being authentic to herself because these are generally things she likes, knowing that there's going to be a subset of fans that like that and hip hop. And if she shows that she's also competent at what she does as a musician, all of a sudden she can create content around these 2 things while also showcasing her music that could provide value to somebody. And when I say value, usually the digital marketing world thinks of value just as I learned something. But value can be I learned something, it made me laugh, it made me cry, it made me think more deeply, it inspired me. These are all things that create an emotional response, just like how music is. Your social media content should create an emotional response of some sort. If you don't, the last thing you want is meh. Just like when you hear a song, the last thing you want is meh, right? It's better to have
Right.
someone be like, I love this song or I hate this song. At least I would think. So if she does that and creates that content, that's how she could start finding her audience of understanding who she is and then understanding strategically picking the places where there's going to be an audience for it. So that is one way of starting, right? Now the question is, how do you figure out what they also like? Then there's different ways of doing that. It's based on research, really. It requires like elbow grease, right? Doing the research, looking at the people who are always commenting on your social media content, looking through their profiles and seeing what are the common themes I'm starting to see. It is looking at your Instagram analytics and looking at what the countries and what the age groups are and what the gender is. It's going to your Spotify and looking at where the same type of data, what other artists are listening to you. It's all those type of things. Now, someone might say, well, what if I don't have a lot of data on those places, right? Then you pivot over. Then you start looking at what are artists with smaller fan bases that are still larger than mine but aren't in the millions, and I would like to have that type of fan base, and I like the type of fans they have because they're very similar to me. Then you start looking at those profiles and you start cataloging who they are and start creating what we call a persona or a target market. And a question that I get all the time is, what if I have like 2 or 3 different types of groups? That's actually really good. That's actually a question I literally got last week when I was speaking at a conference. That's great because every artist is going to need 2 or 3 different types of target markets to be able to fill that. You usually just don't have one set type of person that likes your music. You usually have a few different types, right? So that's
Right.
the problem they have. So that is where you start. I also like, and this is a hack that I've been saying a lot, and I know other music marketing people are going to take this idea if they hear this and take it as their own idea, which is fine. Just know that it came from me.
It came from John Lee.
is that
Share it because it's going to help people, but it came from John Lee.
is that
Credit the creator. Like,
is that the I remember when I was an artist that it was really deflating those shows where you only had a few people show up. Like you love the sold out shows, but it's really hard when you have the shows where not a lot of people show up. But either way, the merch table is like one of your best places for market research because it is a place where you can ask questions to get to know your fans better. In one hand, you actually get to make a personal connection and build a fan relationship, which is really important. But at the same time, if you come in with the intention of I want to understand my fans better, then you might ask questions like, hey, what other music do you listen to? Hey, what TV shows do you watch? Hey, what else do you enjoy? And if you do that enough times with enough fans over enough shows, you're going to start noticing patterns between who these people are. And all of a sudden, that's another avenue we can start thinking about, hey, it seems like all my fans really enjoy this kind of stuff. Like, let's say, oh, they really seem to enjoy craft beer. Okay, well, marketing wise, maybe I should partner with a craft beer company because they have the same type of audience that listens to my music, like things like
Right.
that. Or, but the difference is, don't just do it because they all do craft beer. You could do that, but if you're not a craft beer person and you're creating that content, then all of a sudden you're not being authentic, and eventually that's going to be content that's really hard for you to maintain, right? So the key is to also keep your sanity and also to still be authentic and not go crazy, because we won't go crazy trying to post content all the time. Is finding, once again, those things after you do the research that also line up with who you are, and then it's easier for you to create content. So like, it isn't even just a social media content thing, it's a marketing thing in general. When you learn about your fan, then you know where you need to go and what you need to do to get to them. So that's where it becomes different for every single person. You got to put in the legwork. So that's a long story long.
That's the part. First of all, John, thank you for dropping all of them gems. Second of all, like, I think you're touching on like the major point is that a lot of people that I speak to, we're in a fortunate position, right? So I'm not making a general statement when I say, oh, a lot of people don't want to put in the work. That's not a general statement. You know, like, you and I have both been able to speak to a lot of independent artists.
Yeah.
Whether that's through speaking at conferences, whether it's the personal work that we do, whether it's one-to-one consultations, but like there's a very large volume of people that we're able to speak to, and I'm going to ask you because my personal experience is that most people don't want to do that legwork.
Yeah, most people don't.
How do you feel?
Most people don't want to do the work, to be honest.
But I'm like, where does that come from? Where, like, I mean, maybe we don't have the answers because we're more of the legwork type of people, but the resources are there. Like, when you said that I could give all of the information and like you still have to use it, that is, man, that's so true.
Well, a part of it is because we live in a culture now where like everything is instantaneous. Like I can go to order an Uber. I can like I
So
can
there's immediate gratification built in.
yeah, immediate I can grab any song that I want off of this phone by going to Spotify or Tidal or whatever. When I used to have to like ask mom and dad after school to drop me off at the music store for half an hour so I could go do that, or I had to take a bus, or I had to walk
Right.
to go get my music, right? So part of it is cultural, that instant gratification. I think another part of it is like, do people genuinely love creating music, or do they want the benefits of what they think music will do for them? I
That's a
am
beautiful question.
I am insecure, so I need to become famous to feel validation, when that's not going to help you. Because I know plenty of famous people that are still insecure after that. It doesn't, like, this will fulfill me, or hey, I think I can make a lot of money in this, and my avenue is music. Your goal is not to create music and create art and to create things that communicate the human condition. Your goal, to be honest, is to make money and look famous, right? So I see,
Right.
and when that is your goal, then you're not going to put in the work to do what you need to do, right? So I think there's a part of instant gratification, but I also think there's a part of like I will tell you, and this is no surprise, you know this, like if we were to genuinely look at the amount of hours we put into the music career and the much of the money that we make back, the return on our time and our return on investment is one of the
Don't
lowest
say it.
you can get.
It's
But it's
ridiculous.
ridiculous, right? It's discouraging at times. But why do we do it? We do it because our first love is we love the music. We don't love the benefits of the music. And that's the thing that many people are running into today, especially in a social media age, is like people care more about being famous than being good at their craft.
Right.
Right? So that is another massive problem, right? People just want validation and fame and infamy, or lack of a better word, for the sake of that. It's not because they love the music. Because if they love the music and they want the music to be communicated, then they do all the other legwork, all the other stuff that is difficult to do, all that admin stuff, all of even this stuff when you're researching, they do that because of where the root is, because they love the music. So
There is
everyone
you
else, if you don't love it, you're going to try and shortcut it any way you can, and when you shortcut it, it doesn't work, because these are foundational principles in marketing and psychology and all these type of things that you can't really shortcut. Some people do, but not everybody's able to do it. And if you
right.
fluke out with
They're
something,
outliers.
Yeah, they're outliers. They're the exception. They're not the rule. And unfortunately, most people fall under the rule. Like, I would say I probably fall under the rule. I got to
I
put it
think we all do.
most of
Well,
all,
I mean,
all
not even no. I take that back, Jonathan. I don't think that you fall under the rule in actuality, right? Like maybe the like okay, hey, I wanted to be a musician who was out, and like I wanted to become like the next Drake or whoever, and like oh, it doesn't go there, but that's okay. Everyone wants to do that, right? So I guess we're saying that makes a rule. But then, like, do you have the perseverance, and do you diversify your skill set? Do you identify different things that you actually are interested in? Do you continue to pursue? Because, bro, most of the people that I started making music with when I was like 20 years old, a lot of them don't make music anymore. And then the people that still do, almost all of them, the ones that still do, have a degree of success in their music careers. Whether it's Brittany Hazard, who has become mega awesome, right? Like she's songwriter Stara, right? Terrence Coles, who is an incredible songwriter. He just got the Calvin Klein placement with the from Michael B. Jordan, right? Like you just got a Super Bowl. It was a Super Bowl, right? No, it was the day before playoffs.
leading into
Leading into the Super Bowl.
AFC final or whatever.
Yeah.
One right before leading up into the Super Bowl the week.
Yeah, because I remember seeing it on. I saw the Eagles on it. I'm an Eagles boy. I'm an Eagles fan. So like, even that, like all these different people who have managed to say like, okay, things didn't work. I'm still working. I'm trying different things. Let me get into sync. Let me get into songwriting. Let me get into background vocals. Let me get into mixing and engineering. Like really because you love it. You love it so much that you can't leave it, and you're just like, I'm gonna find something that works. Every single one of those people have like a degree of success. Maybe they're not famous, like maybe they didn't all achieve fame, but did they achieve the ability to work in our business full time? Do they love what they do? It's like, yeah,
And
there's space for that.
100%. And it's also this idea of like, you and me are both big basketball fans. So I consume a lot of basketball content. And a lot of it comes down to, when people get, let's say, to the NBA, they're all the most extremely talented. They've all done a certain amount of work. But what comes down to that is grit and mentality. When someone knocks you down, do you get back up? Because like, I remember so many times as an artist, like I'd have sold out shows, but then I'd have like 2 or 3 shows where like nobody showed up. And like the day after, that is depressing. And you are
It
in your
sucks.
head about like,
Yeah.
do I keep going? Do I do this? And then it has to become if if my mentality was I want to do this for attention, you're gone as soon as that happens for first few times. But if your intention is larger than that, about I love music, I still believe in this, there's a larger purpose to this, then you keep going, right? And there's the difference, right? And that's not to like tout my own horn, but like that's to say that there are very dark days when you do what we do, and we've had more dark days than probably good days, in all honesty, probably for all of us who kept going. But it does come down to, do you keep on persevering? Like, what is your why, right? And that will determine whether you go far, or whether what hits and blows keep you down, and whether you stand back up. These are all the things that require of that, and it's obviously takes putting in your time and putting in the work and getting better at what you do. But a lot of it comes down to like how long you stay in the game for, and how many hits you can take and keep
You
on.
could take seriously.
Yeah.
I just feel like that's almost like maybe because it's not cool, like it's not like a romantic thing to say, right? Like it's not awesome, and
Not
but
romantic.
it's kind of like, yo, can you outlast everybody else?
Yeah. And can you outlast everybody else? And a part of outlasting everybody else is being able to take the hits, but also part of outlasting is like being a decent person, hopefully, and having like integrity and character, and doing what you're saying you're gonna do, and choosing the right collaborators and things like that. like those are absolutely a part of staying, and is like choosing the right people to surround yourself with to keep on going, and then having certain things where you're like, I'm not gonna work with this person. Like, for example, I was talking with hanging out with another professional songwriter the other day, and we were talking about people that we knew in the industry, and there were some people who were like, we decided not to work about this because there was questions around their character and integrity, and if you work with those people, what happens if they get outed for something, whether it's true or not? All of a sudden you're associated with them, and
You're tied to it.
that might
Yeah.
attack on you, even unintentionally, even if you have nothing to do with it, right? So it's also the choice of who you to decide to yourself to associate yourself with as well in this music industry, right? So all
Yeah.
these things add up, right? So like there's a lot that takes making a career in the music industry. So that's what it is. Like, in all reality, it's not sexy, but that's what it is. Even though most of the world outside looking in just sees like, man, this is so cool, this is so sexy, the industry you work in. And there, don't get me wrong, you know this, there are some real fun things that can, and real things that you get to experience that other people don't. But man, there,
Like getting to go to the Joyburst, the Joyburst launch party. So for everybody, like I gotta throw this in here before this episode is over. We get off this call because so the Joyburst launch party happened. When was that? Like June?
is in June, yeah.
Yeah, it was like so June, right? And it was in Toronto,
Yes.
and
Is that a
like I
12
wasn't gonna
rebel?
yeah, I wasn't gonna be able to make it. So I'm like, oh, I hit John. I'm like I'm not gonna be able to make it. He's already up there. Like, boom, I'll send you my tickets. So I sent him my tickets. He goes. He gets to enjoy, the Joyburst show and stuff. And there's people there, right? Like that's like a thing that the average person does not get to experience, right? Like being in this business, you're right. You do. You get to go to an event that has celebrities in it that you don't really have to pay for anything. Stuff is taken care of, and you get to have a fun night. And while you're there, you get to network with other people who may potentially be future business partners or future collaborators, or like that is some of the cool stuff about being able to be in this business.
Yeah, it is. The events are really fun, don't get me wrong. And
So
they're
tell me, how was it? How was the Joyburst event? Tell them how it was. Like,
it, it was fun. The food was good. It was like, I don't know if this is the right way of saying this, so forgive me. But my friend who came, she's also a professional songwriter, and she was just like, "This is like a corporate fever dream." That's what she said.
corporate fever dream.
Was like on one of the stages, like they had the music people there, but then on the stage as things were starting, they're like, "We got Walmart in the house, we got Walgreens in the house," because it was just really interesting to see that, because it was quite it was a different element even for myself of what I haven't seen, because it was a music event, but also like for launching like a product. So like that was a unique thing that I hadn't seen before. So it was really quite fun, and it was a very entertaining night. So I enjoyed it. It was, out of the events I've been to, it was a unique event all in and of itself, even apart from
So
it.
what are product launches normally like? Because you're in like that corporate marketing world. Have you been able to attend different product launches?
Yeah, it's pretty similar, to be honest, in some ways, except for the music element of it. So, and
Got you.
that was the different level. And also, I grew up being a big fan of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, so it's kind of fun to see,
It's like, yo, Donatello's
two
on stage.
super
I don't
cute.
know which turtle was there,
Yeah,
but
yeah. To have him do like, what is it, like the ninja rap or
the
whatever,
ninja rap.
or whatever. I forget what the actual song's called. So that was all kind of fun.
I think it's called the ninja rap.
Yeah. So
Go
there you go.
ninja, go ninja, go. Yeah.
Exactly. So that was fun. So it was, those are the things you get to do, or like, when, also like in the idea of like staying in it for long enough, like seeing your friends like do big things. Like I've seen my friends play arenas and stadiums and be able to do backstage, or being backstage at festivals with them and on the tour
Yeah.
bus and doing those type of things. And those things are really cool, right? Those things are really fun to be able to do those type of things. Those are things are like, you realize that like most people don't get to ever do anything like that or see that side of it. So that's really cool. But man, to be able to experience those things, there's a high cost to be paid. So in terms of
Right.
time and effort, and and money and blood, sweat, and tears. So like that's the thing people don't understand of like how much work it takes to even just be able to experience those things. And you know, if they were to some people, if they were to objectively look at, do I want to be able to experience those things for the price that I have to pay to do that? Might not be worth it. Some people, yes,
Right.
but some people might not. And as I get older, it's come down to that. There's many things you can do, but are you willing to put in the work and pay the price to get that? And that comes to your own calculation as a human being and what you value in life and what you want to do or what you think what your why is and what, or for lack of a better, what you think your purpose is or what you think your calling is. These are all things that are all at play as
Right.
I've gotten older and as I've learned that.
And have you kept going? Speaking of being like proud of your friends, bro, I was so happy for you when
Yeah.
you sent into the group text like, "Yo, I'm gonna get this placement. Like, I'm gonna be out of the country, so somebody take a screenshot of it if I can't see it." Or like, what was so fly about that placement too, which is unique because not all placements are like this. Your name was on the screen.
Which is pretty cool.
That was so cool, man. I'm like, yo, this is really, especially because like if we
It's an
rewind
unreleased track
back,
too, so that's why that changed everything. Like that track is unreleased until it gets. We're waiting to get a major feature film for it, so it's why it's unreleased. But even though it's unreleased, it was really cool to see my name up there. And if it wasn't,
yeah,
if it was released, that'd be fine. But it's a whole different thing because it's unreleased and the name was still there, like that.
yeah,
That doesn't.
that's sick. And
It,
never, that's what I'm saying. I'm like, that's so rare. And when I saw your name on the screen, I was like, yo, this is crazy. Cause you know, in my mind, I'm also thinking like we've known each other for what, like 2 years,
two
two and a
almost
half years.
3 now, I would assume. Maybe
Yeah,
now. Yeah.
we probably are coming up on 3.
Yeah.
And it's like if we go back to like 3 years ago to now, in tandem, like we've been able to watch each other like move our careers.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what is like the most awesome thing in this business too, is like making sure like when you talked about like, you know, building a community, and we were kind of having it in the reference of building a community of fans.
Yeah.
It's also incredible when you're a part of a community and you guys get to like share in each other's joy and love. You know, like it's nice to have to be proud of someone.
Ye-
It's nice to be able to celebrate someone. It's motivating to be like, wow, my friend is doing this. This is incredible. Like, let me try. You know, like those things keep you going and they keep you motivated. If everyone around you in your circle is just sort of like the energy is down
Yeah.
and
Or if they
nobody's
don't
like
celebrate your
supporting each other.
Yeah, or when they don't,
Yeah.
then you might be around the wrong people if they aren't celebrating you and your wins, right? Because like I
Yeah.
remember when you did the Joyburst stuff and the Billboard article came out, and I read through the whole Billboard. I was just like, this is so cool that like Billboard is writing about something that like one of my homies has done, right? Like
Yeah,
that is
man.
like yeah, you just need to have people that
People
love you
that
enough.
love you.
People love you enough to tell you the truth, but also celebrate your wins, right? And sometimes you
Right.
don't. So that's the unique thing, right? So yeah, no, it was really really cool. Like it was so cool when I saw you do that early in the year, and then like for this one, it like kind of dawned on me. It didn't really hit me because like we had already gotten a placement on that same song on an NBC Peacock show, but it was a streaming thing. So like I already knew people had listened to it, but it was a whole different feeling. And I didn't really realize it until after it aired, like maybe a day because it ran for like a whole week. And I realized like my name's on there, but more so than just my name on there, just like I realized in that moment because like it's like a conference finals game, like literally millions of people have heard, millions upon millions of people worldwide have heard something that I've written. And that was like,
Isn't that crazy, man?
this is crazy. Like that's something that it didn't really hit me
The
until
reality didn't hit you yet.
you for like a day or two. And then I just like, oh dang, like millions of people have heard it, which is like
Yeah.
really, really cool.
Bro. thank you so much for taking the time out to sit with me. We've been talking for like a little over an hour. I want to be mindful of your time. Thank you so much for coming to do the podcast, for chatting, for giving advice, not only just about like the marketing and everything like that, but just also like how you have to be mindful of yourself, the people that you're around. And man, I'm glad that we're friends.
Me too. Friendship, good.
Yeah.
Friendship equals good, people. If you take nothing else from this podcast, it is good to have friends.
Right. And good friends.
Good friends. Real friends.
Real friends. Yeah.
Real friends.
Word. Well, I appreciate you for being on, man.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.